And the last statement when we stopped last week was, remember, sincerity counts before him, the Lord, not hypocrisy, nor a show of piety. Now, number 11. Nothing real can be achieved in the field of religion by mere talk. It is a thing to be practiced with all the intensity of life and soul. We can never hope to attain even a bit of religion if we rest contented by simply making a verbal reproduction of the teachings of our scriptures, like a talking machine, and make no further move. He alone has spirituality, who has the internal realization of it. To him alone, who has the seed of religion, comes its gradual unfoldment. Just as the seed of a banyan is necessary to bring forth a mighty tree, so there must be the seed of spirituality in us first. Then we must rear the tree. In other words, mold our thinking by one thought only. No one can become spiritual by simply filling his head with stock phrases and now and then making a parade of them before others. Of course, one can pass for a great scholar, but he will never be spiritual. Sri Ramakrishna used to say that pundits are like vultures that soar high in the air, but whose eyes are fixed on the charnel pits below, on lust and gold. The first thing needed to be spiritual is truthfulness. Never forsake truth, even for the sake of your life. God is truth itself. Hence, he is at the command of one who is devoted to truth. Spirituality is impossible for him who does not cherish truthfulness in thought, word, and deed. Without this, all attempt is in vain. So first of all, try to be unflinchingly truthful with all heart and soul. Truth is ever victorious in all times, past, present, and future. There's a story in the gospel where Ramakrishna couldn't look at Brahmananda, Rakal. And he said, have you told a lie? And he said, no, I haven't. But he thought and thought and thought, and he had told a joke with a bit of sarcasm in it. And he said, no, even that is not truthful. So that's how assiduously we have to pursue the truth. Many know theoretical much of what spirituality is, but alas, how few are there who put their knowledge into actual practice. The achievement will be only his who will follow up truth. We hear many say that it is impossible to be truthful in business, but I do not believe that. Where truth reigns, there the Lord himself abides. If the man of business carefully enshrines the truth in his house, he will be looked upon as the greatest of all virtuous men, and his business is destined to thrive. Nag Mahasaya, a householder's disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, was greatly devoted to truth. Once he went to buy something in the market, and the shopkeeper charged him 4 annas. As he was truthful, he took the shopkeeper at his word and did not haggle with him. A bystander, seeing him pay the 4 annas, thought to himself, what sort of a man is this? He did not even bargain. But when he learned that the man was Nag Mahasaya, the saint who believed no one would dupe others, he took the shopkeeper to task for charging 4 annas for what was worth only 2 annas. The shopkeeper took this to heart. The next day, when Nag Mahasaya came to buy something, the shopkeeper charged him only 2 annas for the article worth 5 annas. With folded hands, Nag Mahasaya addressed the shopkeeper. Why do you act like this with me? This is worth more than 2 annas. Please charge me the right price. deeply moved. The shopkeeper fell at the feet of the saint. You will never lose if you adhere to truth. Hold fast to truth, and divine grace is sure to follow you through all channels. You will prosper not only in worldly affairs, but in spirituality as well. If you have truthfulness, every other virtue is sure to come in its wake, even self-control. But we have lost this truthfulness, and that is why we have come to such a pass, groaning under the crushing weight of misery and degradation. Now all our efforts must be directed first to retrieve it, not by mere empty speech, but by sincere action, pledging our heart and soul to it. The principal element in spiritual practice is this sincerity, making the inner life tally with the outer, thought with speech. At present we are hypocrites, for we think one way and talk another. We are not sincere. This is delusion and ignorance. He who wants to be spiritual must give up talk and take up practice. God's grace descends upon such a person, and he's sure to prosper here and hereafter. In the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna urges us to perform work without attachment, to attain freedom even in this life. This is neither a myth nor the fabrication of a morbid brain. Okay. We have actually seen lives with our own eyes. We also must attain the same freedom in this very life. We must attain it, even if it means total sacrifice. Otherwise, all our talk of religion and devotion will remain confined to speech and unrealized in actual life. Unless we attain freedom, we will not get pure devotion. In whatever station of life we may be, let us all say with the force of our soul that we must become Jivan Muktas, the living free. But we will have to sacrifice our entire lives. Many like to hear of devotions. Indeed, it is very pleasant to discuss, but it demands one's very lifeblood, as it were, when one goes to practice it. Once a man wanted prema, intense love for God. Just then he saw a vendor passing in the street, in the street with a basket on his head, crying, "Oh, here is prema, who wants it, who would buy it?" Hearing this, some boys cried out, "Oh, let us eat prema." Some older ones also called out, "Indeed, we want prema." At this, the vendor lowered the basket from his head and said, "Come, let me know how much prema each of you will have. I sell it by weight. How much do you want? A pound, you say?" With this, he drew out a sharp knife. "Here, give me your head, and I shall return you as much prema as your head weighs. If you want prema, this is the price you must pay, your head." Verily, never has spirituality been attained by mummery, by empty words. Sacrifice, terrible sacrifice of one's own life, is the price for it. Have you not heard of Sri Radha? She gave up everything that one considers dear in this life, and so she got him, Sri Krishna. We have also seen such lives ourselves, the sublime lives of Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Vivekananda, Nag Mahashai, and others who are ever shining brightly before our eyes. If you want spirituality, follow such examples. It is impossible to have the world as well as religion. When you give up everything, then alone will you win spirituality. See God, know the Atman, then will the book of infinite wisdom be open to you. He who is infinite wisdom and infinite being dwells within you. The experiences of the seers and prophets of old are recorded in the scriptures, but the mere study of the scriptures is not enough. In order to gain the true knowledge of God, you have to have the experience yourself. Then alone will the door of all mysteries be opened. It is written in the Gita that Brahman is beginningless, transcendent, eternal. He is said to be equally beyond what is and what is not. The key to the knowledge of God is in his hands. Therefore, pray for his grace. Make him your chosen ideal. Yearn for him, for a loving heart. He stands revealed. That is what our Master taught us. While it is true that every divine incarnation in God-man embodied all the great ideals, yet each one emphasized one particular ideal. Someone was asking what the difference between them is, and here it is. For instance, Sri Chaitanya was the very embodiment of love. Just as congealed water takes the form of ice, so congealed love took the form of Sri Chaitanya. In the same way, Shankara was the embodiment of knowledge, Buddha the embodiment of renunciation, and Sri Krishna the embodiment of selfless work. The harmony of the divergent philosophy and creeds is found in the Gita as taught by Sri Krishna. He emphasized that selfless work, meditation, knowledge, and love are but different limbs of spiritual disciplines. But in his own life, he exemplified the discipline of selfless action. Such selfless work leads to purity of heart. Dispassion can arise only in a heart that is pure. In his own life, Buddha exemplified dispassion. He asked for nothing for himself, not even liberation. All his struggles were for the good of mankind. Out of dispassion springs knowledge. Shankara was the embodiment of knowledge. Knowledge leads to love, and Sri Chaitanya came that mankind might bathe in this love. Yet man, in his ignorance, thought that these ideals differed one from another, and out of this ignorance, divergent creeds and sects were formed. But with the coming of Sri Ramakrishna, these different opinions were harmonized. The divergent streams met in him, the ocean of harmony. Even as rivers spring from different sources yet mingle in the ocean, so all the Vedas, all scriptures, all truth, though of diverse origin, come home to thee. Sri Ramakrishna practiced the disciplines prescribed by all the different religions, and through each one of them he realized God. He saw God in all beings, and to him there were none hateful. We have seen him living most of the time drunk with the love of God. The very idea of a sect being formed around him was abhorrent to him. And after all, how is it possible to hedge about a God-man, a knower of the Atman, one who has the very embodiment of divine love and had probed the very depths of every religion? Sects are formed when religion degenerates, and its followers become weak, jealous, and fearful. It is the water of a pond which stagnates, never the waters of a flowing river. Guard yourself against fanaticism. Never disturb the faith of another. Never say, we belong to the sect of Sri Ramakrishna. He is the only savior. He is the greatest avatar. Therefore, all people must worship him. Sri Ramakrishna had absolutely no sense of egoism. He lived by giving power of attorney to the Divine Mother. To do that means to surrender one's own power, to act entirely to that of another. Girish Ghosh gave the power of attorney to Sri Ramakrishna. Such complete surrender is difficult, even impossible, so long as there remains even the least trace of ego. Sri Ramakrishna used to say it was like living as a dry leaf before the wind. He who feels neither elation nor affliction in the presence of pleasure or pain, but keeps his mind poised in God and lives as an instrument in the hands of God, is one who truly follows the teachings of Sri Krishna in the Gita. Lay down all duties in me, your refuge, he said. And truly the Lord does fulfill his promise. Fear no longer, for I shall save you from sin and from bondage. See and feel God's grace. All else is vain. The self is not known through the study of the scriptures, nor through the subtlety of the intellect, nor through much learning. Whom the self chooses, by him he is attained. And it is when his grace descends that infinite knowledge unfolds. When one no longer cares for the study of the scriptures, then one no longer cares for the study of the scriptures. Direct knowledge is one thing, and book knowledge is another. This, however, does not mean that one should give up the study of the scriptures. For as Sri Ramakrishna used to say, the fan is needed until the spring breeze blows. Be merged in God. Dive deep. God is not a mere word to be uttered. He is the reality to be attained. Attain him even in this very life. There is no other way to cross the vast desert of worldliness, the abode of suffering and of death. Nothing other than devotion to God can bring peace to the arid heart. Be selfless. Be free from vanity. Practice your spiritual disciplines with earnestness and enthusiasm. Thus shall you reach God. Consider the life of Sri Ramakrishna. Whenever he undertook to practice some spiritual discipline, he became completely absorbed in it and followed the practice through to its conclusion with great earnestness, perseverance, and single-hearted devotion. Be active also. Free yourself from all sense of ego and work selflessly. Be very careful that no sense of leadership or any trace of selfishness enter into you. Whatever you do, do as the servant of God. Offer all the fruits of your actions to him. Then shall your work be turned into worship. Dispassion, renunciation of ego, love, devotion, and living faith, these are the signs of a true monk. No garb ever made a monk. For a householder to neglect his duty, for a brahmachari to give up his vows, for a monk to be restless with passions, these are hypocrisies. The Garo robe is the sign of renunciation. To one who is dispassionate, it is merely an ornament. But if the mind runs after women and gold and is made restless by the passions, then the wearing of the robe becomes a farce. Color your heart and your mind with the color of renunciation, dispassion, and devotion to God. Then only will you be a true monk. The general may win the battle, the king may subdue his kingdom, but he who rules his own mind is the greatest of them all. Let the strong wind of dispassion arise in your minds, that the trees of desire may be uprooted. Then, even as birds fly from the shelter of trees before a strong wind, will the ignorance of selfishness, jealousy, hatred, and egoism take flight from your hearts. Then shall peace flow and fill your lives, even as calm follows the storm. Mold your lives so that wherever you live, be it under a tree or in a meadow, ashrams will be founded, and many spiritual aspirants will gather around you. No real work is done by merely lecturing. Our lives must exemplify the ideals you preach. Sri Ramakrishna was the living example of dispassion. Make him your ideal and mold your life after his pattern. While the goldsmith is melting gold, he works with his hands, his feet, and his mouth. With his feet he operates the bellows, with his hands he operates the fan, and with his mouth he blows on the fire, so that the gold will melt more quickly. When it is melted, he pours it into the mold. Then, only then does he relax and smoke his pipe. In the same way, you must strive with all the might of your body, mind, and heart to love God, to be melted into his love, and to become absorbed in him. Keep alive the fire of dispassion and renunciation within you, and let your mind be renewed by the deep impression of purity. Everything in this world is fraught with fear. Renunciation alone is fearless. As you grow older, it will become impossible for you to control your mind. Therefore, you should practice now. Sri Ramakrishna used to liken the mind to a packet of mustard seeds, which, when once scattered, are difficult to collect again. In old age, the mind loses its strength. A white cloth can be dyed any color, but it is difficult to dye a cloth already colored. In the same way, the mind that is colored by worldliness is difficult to change. Your young minds have not been colored by the world. That is why I'm urging you to struggle hard now. Even though in youth the passions are strong, the mind is still stronger. Therefore, strive to dye your minds in the color of God's love. Swami Vivekananda established this monastery with the idea of producing ideal characters. True, there is no lack of monasteries and temples in India, and Swamiji's purpose was not to add yet another to the existing thousands. The sole purpose of this place is to inspire the youth of the country in the ideals of renunciation and the harmony of all religions. From this monastery, monks will go out and teach these ideas throughout the whole world. Sri Ramakrishna did not come to found another sect. He came to bring new life, new impetus into the spirit of all religions, and it was to produce young men of selfless character and purity to broadcast the Master's ideal of universality that Swamiji founded this monastery. You have come here inspired by the ideal of Sri Ramakrishna. Now mold your lives accordingly. The ideals of renunciation and purity must be so embodied in your lives that people of all countries will look to you and pattern their lives after your example. The ideal of a monk's life is not merely to wear the garb, memorize spiritual passages, and wander about the places of pilgrimage. No. It is far better to remain in one place and engage yourself intensely in the practice of spiritual discipline than to wander aimlessly from one place to another, especially for a beginner. He should stay in one place and practice meditation and japa with great regularity. Like the bird in the fable, he should hold fast to the mast of the ship. And the footnote will end on that. This refers to a parable told by Sri Ramakrishna in which a bird, perched on the mast of a ship, discovers that the ship is heading out to sea. The bird flies off in all four quarters of the earth searching for shore. At last, unable to find land, it settles down on the mast. The parable illustrates the vain search of worldly people for happiness, finally exhausted from the pursuit of pleasure, they resign themselves to God. And I think we'll end there this evening. We'll be starting next week on, we will. I think there's a class next Wednesday with Swami Premananda. I'm just seeing that. The 9th, yeah. We'll start there on the 16th of August. Friday, we'll have a gospel reading here in the temple at 5 o'clock. Sunday will be Swami Chidakananda, who is at the Advaita Ashram in Calcutta. He will be speaking on Sri Ramakrishna's pilgrimage mindset, a traveler's guide to spiritual experiences. Okay? And then next Wednesday, on the 9th of August, Swami Tyagananda, the head of the Boston Center, will give a class at 5 o'clock on reconciling knowledge and love, jnana and bhakti. It will be followed by a potluck in the convent after the arati, after Vesper service. Okay? And that's where we are.
Krishna Prana, you said the gospel class was on Friday night. You meant Saturday, right?
I mean Saturday night. Thank you, Amrit. Okay. I always go Friday night. That's when Swami P had it, and it's stuck in my old memory. Okay, and then Saturday the 12th, we won't be having that gospel reading because we have Swami Balabhadrananda, the Assistant General Secretary of the Ramakrishna Math Mission in India, coming to visit. And he will be speaking on Holy Mother, Vedanta in Practice. That will be at 5 o'clock Saturday the 12th. And he will, after his talk, we'll have Vesper service and then a potluck to get to know him a little bit. So I wish all of you could be here in person as well as on Zoom. Any questions or comments on any part of the reading? That was fairly stern teachings for young monks.
Krishna Prana?
I'm sorry?
I have a question. It's I never heard of Nag Mahasaya.
Yeah.
And he was mentioned in, with Ramakrishna and Vivekananda. I'm just wondering who is he?
Nag Mahasaya was one of the visitors who often came to see Sri Ramakrishna, and it was very funny. It was said that Nag Mahasaya became so small that the net of the world could not catch him, and Swamiji became so large that nothing could hold him. Nag Mahasaya is like the embodiment of egolessness.
Thank you.
You'll see that. Okay.
Sounds like the eight occult powers, Krishna. It's so small and so large.
Yep. You either become so small that the net that goes in and catches the fish that you can scoot out between the net, or so large that you don't fit in.
Toward the end of At Holy Mother's Feet, there's a statement by Sarada Devi that each of these avatars, a little bit like your speech tonight, extended one feature beyond all others. And I think it gives some hope. I cannot possibly renounce the way that Ramakrishna did.
Well, I think Premananda said it pretty clearly that he came to embody the unity of all paths, and to harmonize them, and never to try and say one is better than the other. Because as he said, that what happens is this people become tied to I belong to this one, my big ego belongs to this sect, and it is the only right one. And as he said, it arises from fear. Fear of not having the right answer. Fear of, because you don't you're not sure of your faith. You haven't experienced it in your heart. So you try and convince everyone else that what you believe is correct. Because if you can convince everyone else, then you know that maybe you have it right.
I had 15 people trying to do that with me today. The Trembling Wreath is too long. I won't bore you with
No.
it. But my favorite poem of Pushkin has the trembling leaf figure in it, and it's very
It's hard. It's hard for most. It's hard for many people to admit that everyone is worshiping the same entity, the same God, the same truth, because they have devoted their lives to one version of it. So it becomes difficult to. But every single faith has the people in it that do open their hearts and their minds and see that. It's the experience of God, not what they read, which is what Swami Premananda said all through this. You must experience it in your life and your heart, not just read about it in books. It's an actual experience, and that's what we're aiming for. So we'll see you Saturday at the reading at 5. We'll see you Sunday for Swami Chidakananda, and he speaks English very well. He was raised in northern and southern California. And we will see you Wednesday the 9th with Swami Tyagananda, Jnana and Bhakti. Okay. We end with a chant. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.